Hello, I'm Roland Guit and welcome to my course ASP.NET Core 6 Big Picture. I'm a Microsoft MVP, independent consultant and trainer based in the Netherlands. If you want to know what ASP.NET Core is and what you can do with it, this course is for you. We're covering technologies like Blazor, MVC, Web API, gRPC and SignalR. And I'm showing you sample applications for each, explaining them step by step. Here are some major topics I will talk about. Server-rendered front-end applications with MVC and Razor Pages, client-rendered front-end applications with Blazor, and back-end APIs with gRPC and Web API. By the end of this course, you'll be able to determine if ASP.NET Core is for you, and more importantly, what it contains and how each contained technology works. Before beginning the course, you should have a good understanding on how the web works with requests and responses, have HTML knowledge, and experience with .NET and C#. Get ready to unlock the wonderful world of ASP.NET Core with my course ASP.NET Core 6 Big Picture at Pluralsight. Hello and welcome. I'm Roland and I've created a few other courses on the ASP.NET Core topic in the past. This course is specifically about ASP.NET Core 6 and it's created with version 6.0. It's useful for any minor version of ASP.NET Core 6. Should you be looking for an older version, please take a look at my author page to find the course relevant to you. You probably know a bit about ASP.NET Core already. Maybe you've seen a demo, played around with it, or maybe you've seen some documentation. But let's start at the very beginning anyway, to give you the whole big picture. Before I start, you will have to be aware of a couple of things. First, the intent of this course. It is meant as an overview of all that ASP.NET Core is and what you can do with it. That doesn't mean this will be a course with just slides. I'll also show you code so that in addition to the theory, you gain a good technical understanding of the different parts, just not in a way that you can code along or start creating ASP.NET Core applications right after watching this course. You'll need to watch additional courses before you can do that. But at the very least, this course will inspire you to make the right choices on what part of ASP.NET Core you could zoom into next. In terms of knowledge, we need a starting point in order to proceed. First of all, I'm assuming that you know how the web works, with HTTP, requests and responses. You should have at least a basic understanding of how HTML and CSS work, because these technologies form the basis of every ASP.NET Core application. I'm going to show you code examples. To understand them, I also need you to know what .NET is, and you should be able to read the C# programming language. If you have knowledge gaps, I would recommend watching other big picture courses around these topics first. Depending on your learning style, looking at my code examples or experimenting with them might be beneficial. If so, you can find all content in this GitHub repository. Carved Rock is a non-existent company selling outdoor equipment. I've created this webpage for them. It contains the logo, a subtitle and the phrase Today's Specials. The HTML for this page looks like this. Of course, you can find the elements of the page here. They are styled and positioned using CSS classes that come from a popular CSS library called Bootstrap. Under the header Today's Specials, I now want to list products, and I want customers to click on them to see more details. The products for carved rock are in a database, so we need to build functionality to get the products out of the database and somehow render them as part of this web page. The need for this functionality marks the difference between a website and a web application. A website is for static content. It is made up of individual HTML and CSS files that rarely change. For example, the site for a sports club that contains some info where the club is located and how to participate. As soon as we introduce functionality like getting the coming matches from an external source, or in the case of carved rock, getting the products from a database, we no longer call it a website, we call it a web application. To create web applications, a web application framework helps a lot. Something that gives us the building blocks to create the needed functionality and to give us a way to write our code in a structured manner so that it is maintainable and extendable. ASP.NET Core is such a web application framework created by Microsoft. It gives us the means to create front-end and back-end web applications. Maybe you're wondering now, do we absolutely need a web application framework? Well, when I want to get from A to B by car, I only have to know how to operate the car. I need not have the knowledge around how the engine works. And that's great, because now I can be focused on getting to my destination, and I don't have to think about the underlying technology. With a web application framework, in theory, you could reinvent the wheel and write all the building blocks yourself, and come up with your own way to structure the code. Apart from the time and the expertise that will take, we want to invest in creating application solutions for our organization or customer, and leave the deeper underlying technology to others. Also, using a commonly used web application framework like ASP.NET Core enables your organization to bring in other developers that already know how to work with the framework and its building blocks, making the onboarding process a lot easier while optimizing the speed of development. It's like if you buy a car of a brand and type you never drove before, you already know how to drive it. You don't have to read the manual first, because driving a car is a standardized practice. Hopefully you're convinced that using a web application framework is a good idea. But what kind of applications can be built exactly with ASP.NET Core? I'm answering that question next. Before we get into more detail, I want to make sure we are on the same page regarding front and back-end applications. A front-end application is responsible for delivering content to the browser. It has to be content the browser can understand, such as HTML, CSS and JavaScript. We learned that one of the functionalities a web application can provide is accessing data in a data store, such as a database. The front-end application could implement the logic to access the data store itself, as well as the logic around it that makes sure the data is correct, the business rules. However, most of the time, it's a good idea to keep things separated. Let the front end worry about the user interface and create another application concerned with data and business rules. This type of application is called a backend application. And the type of backend application that provides data and applies business rules is called a web API, or in short, API. Separation will give us a more maintainable application structure, and it enables us to form separate front and back-end teams. But it also enables reusability. Because it is a separate application now, other applications can consume it. This could be other front-end applications. not just web applications, but also desktop and mobile applications, and even other backend applications. ASP.NET Core lets you build powerful front and backend applications. It contains 3 distinct application styles to create front ends: MVC, Razor Pages and Blazor. But that's not all. For backend applications, there is Web API and gRPC. And finally, there's SignalR, a supporting technology that enables real-time web applications. In the coming course modules, I will introduce you to all of these. For now, it is enough to understand that ASP.NET Core can do much more than just create a web page. It is here to provide us with everything we need to create web applications. Not just the front end, but also all supporting applications. Now that we know what ASP.NET Core can do, you might ask, is ASP.NET Core a good choice? And are there alternatives? Stay tuned. ASP.NET Core is a great choice when you're in the market for a web application framework. Here's why. You already got a taste of its wide range of application styles, the multiple ways to create front and back-end applications. We'll soon see that no matter which one you choose, the lower level engine is the same, since they all run on the same foundational framework. This means you only have to learn the lower level anatomy once and apply that knowledge to all styles. Later on in this module, you will learn more about the anatomy. ASP.NET Core is also open source. That means it's not a black box in which you don't know what's going on. Everything is transparent. And it's good for the continuation of the product because both Microsoft and the community are working on it. ASP.NET Core is among the best performing frameworks out there, and it runs on multiple platforms such as Windows and Linux, giving it the widest range of hosting options possible. Modularity is also an important advantage. It has a big feature set, but almost every aspect of it is opt-in. When you don't use it, it costs nothing in terms of performance and memory. ASP.NET Core is also built on top of .NET. That means that existing .NET developers can use the complete library of classes they know and love contained in .NET in their ASP.NET Core applications, using one of the .NET programming languages where C# is the most common. There are a lot of alternatives which have one thing in common. They are not running on .NET. ASP.NET Core is the obvious choice for .NET developers. On other platforms, there is Node.js, for example, with the Express framework. On Java, there's a well-known framework called Spring. And there's Ruby on Rails and Django, just to name a few. These are all great, but of course they are for developers on the platform they're running on. The bottom line, ASP.NET Core is the web application framework for .NET developers.